Today, Christine's talking with organizers of several events in the combat robotics space, getting tips and ideas for how you can host your own event.
As soon as I got involved, I was immediately hooked. It's these big robots that you've seen on TV, and then now you're actually building them and competing with them at NHL and then other competitions like the ones that we hold.
You can be so afraid of, I've got to have this. I have to have that. I need all these things to be able to get this off the ground, but really you don't.
It kind of is one of those, it'd be the change you want to see. So if you want events closer, put on events.
If the judges don't agree, then we'll pull out the rock and sock robot.
We have done that before.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And today we are talking about events and organizing, which I think is such an important topic. And I felt like this was a good time to talk about it, as I just have come off of being part of organizing an event myself for the first time, which was a lot of work. And I think that it's really important for anybody who's thinking about doing this to know how these events go, how they're run, and kind of get a lot of different perspectives. So I have a couple of guests here for my first segment to talk about events more from the collegiate perspective, because like so many colleges are getting into combat robotics and having events and things like that. So I think that's a great place to start. So I will let you both introduce yourselves. Ryan, if you want to go ahead and go first.
Of course. So hello, I'm Ryan. I'm a senior at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and I am the head of the 1 Pound Combat Robotics department for iRobotics, which is our organization.
And my name's Uday. I'm a junior at the University of Illinois, and I'm the president and logistics coordinator for RoboBrawl, which is a 30-pound competition we hold at UIUC every year.
Yes, this is something that I've heard about and something that I've really wanted to go to as a spectator, because I think that it's such a cool event. How did you both get started in running these things? Because I would imagine there's advantages and disadvantages to doing it through a college, as we talked about a little bit before we started recording. So talk about that part of it.
So a big part of iRobotics actually is our kind of advertisement and recruitment. So towards the beginning of every year, our campus holds this really kind of large event called Quad Day, where all the organizations come out with tables and poster boards and kind of advertise themselves, right? So I'm sure I speak for Uday too, but I've been a longtime fan of BattleBots. And when I came across their booth when walking around, I was really interested. And then from there, I got more involved with building a 30-pound robot. And that's kind of how I got brought into this.
Yeah, I didn't know about iRobotics at Quad Day. I learned about it more into the semester, and I joined later on. But yeah, like as soon as I got involved, I was immediately hooked. And it's these big robots that you've seen on TV and on Discovery Channel and all that. And then now you're actually building them and competing with them at NHL and then other competitions like the ones that we hold.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that it's really cool. I love that so many colleges have gotten super involved with this, because I think that it's a great pathway to learning more about STEM just in general. For the events that you all hold, talk a little bit about like what all is involved in planning and setting those up, because I mean, RoboBrawl is a pretty big event in the Midwest that I've heard about from so many people, and they're like, you have to go. And I definitely need to check it out at some point, but I'm curious to know more about the process of like setting it up and getting it going.
Yeah, so there's a lot that goes on into RoboBrawl. One of the main reasons that RoboBrawl started was the way iRobotics is split up is every year makes their own 30-pound team or 30-pound robot. So the freshmen make their own, the sophomores make their own, juniors make their own, seniors make their own. And then because of the way we've structured it, we've gone through like so many different 30-pound robots, like all the way from our founding members who now compete on the actual BattleBots TV show. They started building 30 pounds like 10 years ago. And then over that time, we just keep building more and more. And then along the way, we were like, okay, we have all of these 30-pound robots, but how are we actually going to like compete with them? Because back then NHL wasn't that popular. It was like I think like 2018 was around when NHRL kind of, or like around like COVID is when NHRL started gaining popularity. But then even before then, we wanted to start our own 30-pound robot or competition so that we could actually compete with our robots. And from then, it's kind of spiraled into just a giant competition. It initially started as an exhibition. So every year we have an engineering open house at the University of Illinois, and it started as one of the main exhibits there to kind of show off the engineering skills that our students or students of Illinois work on during their like as extracurriculars and stuff like that. And it was the engineering open house is kind of like a recruitment phase for incoming students, and it's just a way to showcase how what we do as engineering students outside of the classroom. And then what our biggest initially, because it was an exhibition, it was kind of limited towards our own robots. So like there was a maximum of like 8 teams. But more recently, like 2022, 2023, and 2024, we've tried to expand that as much as possible. Last year we had 38 30-pound teams. And that's the largest 30-pound competition in the United States, beat out only by a competition in, I believe, the UK, which had 42 or something. And we're going to try and go make it even bigger this year. But because there's so many teams that come in, it's like there's a lot of planning that has to go on beforehand. You have to do a lot of it is just arena setup, which takes a full week because the arena is so big. And we have to actually assemble it every year because unlike NHRL, we don't have our own building for our arena. So we spend a week before our event date to actually set up the whole thing, make sure that all of the safety is up to code, and then like during events of fires or something, we know we have procedures that's listed down, and we know exactly what to do in any dangerous events. And then there's also location scouting. So where are we actually going to hold this event? This year, what happened was we held it outside, and luckily we had a tent, but it was raining, so that's something that we're going to try and look into for next year. Try and get an indoor venue. And we also do a lot of like making sure that our competitors are ready for the event, doing like CAD check-ins, making sure they actually have a robot that they can compete with at NHRL or RoboBrawl. And they have proper pits that they can actually work on their robots during the competition. And then Ryan can talk more about the 1-pound division as well.
Of course. So as Uday said, it's a very collaborative effort to actually build the arena. That's the primary issue that most of us face. So iRobotics is actually a very special organization in that one of our core tenets is that no student pays any money. So we pay for the entire robot. It's entirely funded by our sponsors and by the school. But among this is that every student competing with a 30-pound robot must then go and help build the arena. So we've got a little bit of a joke. It's called the freshman labor force, as the freshmen usually are the largest team. So every single person actually gets hands-on. They put in 10 to maybe 12 hours. I know I personally, for the last 3 years, have put in upwards of 36 hours per build session of just everyone's working together. We're all in it together. We're fighting the weather. We're fighting logistics, all to get this arena built in time for the competition. And it kind of builds a real sense of camaraderie, right? But this is all around the 30-pound division. And our teams can be quite large, upwards of 25 or more people. And when the teams get that large, actually getting hands-on, like on the robot and designing a good portion can feel like a little bit of a struggle, right? Because it's such a team collaborative effort. There's only so many hands that can be on the robot. So that is why iRobotics provides an additional outlet if you want to join Combat Robotics, which is DPD, or Design, Print, Destroy. So this program predates me by quite a bit. I remember visiting a competition in my first year here and noting that it was pretty cool, right? But I was too focused on leading my own 30-pound team to really focus on it. Come around the second year, I wanted an outlet, right, to kind of explore my own designs, and I found that DPD was the perfect outlet for that. So in DPD, we have a standardized kit, which is just electronics. So Currently, thanks to our sponsors at Repeat Robotics, it's all Repeat Robotics components. But in previous years, it was like N20s and Flash Hobby motors. So with those in mind, we host sessions every week where all of our students come in and we essentially teach them how to CAD and how to build these combat robots. So we come in, I say for this past year where I've been head, we prepared an entire curriculum that would step by step walk people through how to use Fusion 360 to design a drum style robot. And then once we're through with that, we then let them go out on their own and design their own robots, which we then print for them, hence the design, the print. And then lastly, we host competitions regularly throughout the year to destroy them. Normally, in previous years, we were only able to get maybe 2 or 3 competitions throughout the year during major school events. But due to increased kind of, I don't know, efforts, we've managed to get up to 6 events this past year and expand our competitions to include more external competitors. So there's a lot of colleges in the local area that come over, like Rose-Hulman or U Chicago and other such teams.
That's
You as
really
well.
awesome. I mean, it sounds like a cool collaborative thing that you all do. I mean, with the 1 pounders is, I mean, I would imagine that that's especially a fun thing to do because with the advent of 3D printing, as long as you know how to CAD, that makes the process of making a robot far easier than anything else because you don't have to machine, you don't have to do any of those things. You just make the design and you print it. What else can you talk about in terms of like the competition? If you have any plans of expanding it more, I know that you said you were going to expand it a little bit more, but like anything of that nature forward facing.
Of course. So once again, our kind of core tenets for iRobotics is accessibility and not having to pay, right? And as such, it slightly limits our scope in that as an org, we have to pay for all these electronic kits. So this past year, we actually dedicated a large amount of funds towards DPD and expanding it. So we built an entirely new arena, which can cost upwards of over $1,000 to build. They are expensive things because safety is always a #1 priority. And each kit for each person cost roughly in the $80 to $100 range, and we purchased 24 of these. So going forward, we may be trying to lower the costs of entry by working out better kind of negotiations with different suppliers to kind of get more components in. And also, we will perhaps push people to put in a few of their own personal funds into building their own robots so they can get a better result. And a part of the way we kind of motivate people to become so invested, which is really important, one of my favorite parts of iRobotics is like the transfer of knowledge. So every year, we've made it kind of our mentality and culture to kind of bestow upon all the knowledge that we know down to the next generation, and they then learn more. And so for each progressive year, we can see how in the 30 pounds and 1 pound, how the robots get better and better, and people get more and more ambitious. So hopefully, eventually, this leads to DPD being very self-sustaining and taking off on its own. But bringing it back to expansion. So for the past, since its inception, DPD has been a plastic ant competition. So our entire frames are 3D printed out of brittle plastics like PLA and ABS, and the weapons too. But as a competitor who competes in the Midwest scene, I have a lot of experience with open ants. So those have metal weapons and TPU armor and UHMW, and I really enjoyed the experience. So I've been slowly integrating it into our competitions, eventually culminating in DPD at Rebel Brawl this year. We actually were a member. This was an MRCA ranked event. So our event actually affected the live standings of the robots in the area to go to a finals event. And as such, it drew in a lot of competitors, probably 15 to 16 additional competitors. And with this success, we're going to continue going forward with it into the coming school year and trying to make all of our events MRCA ranked and have the open and plastic class going on side by side.
Yeah. So like Ryan talked about, a lot of like doing events is based on however much budget you get. If for people who are like trying to get into starting their own event, right? One of the most important things that we think is safety. So all of our arenas are a double layered polycarbonate, and we have a ventilation system as well, so that in case of any fire, any lipo battery explosions or any such situation like that, we can safely contain the fire and then deal with that relatively quickly so that the event itself can move on at a well-timed pace as well. So if you're starting to get into, or if you're thinking about starting to get into an event or starting an event, then a lot of it would be how much budget do you have? And that can depend on like what sponsors you have, how many competitors you think will actually show up to your event, so you can kind of scale it that way. And then after that, you can start designing your arena, or also around which weight class you want. We only have 1 pound and 30 pounds, so our 1 pound weight class has like a wooden floor and slightly smaller. I believe it's 8 feet by 8 feet.
It's 6 feet by 6 feet by 3 feet. So if I can kind of go into this, so there's a few general kind of standardized arena sizes which pair with each weight class. Now each is flexible, but typically fairy weights, which are 150 grams, are 4 foot by 4 foot. Ant weights are 6 foot by 6 foot. Beetle weights are 8 foot by 8 foot. And then 12 and 30 pound are 16 foot by 16 foot, which is what we have and what NHRL has.
Yeah. So a lot of it is like, do you have the funds to actually build your arena, and then you can start up that way, or like start collecting funds, or like getting money to actually build out your arena first, and then you can start inviting people and then getting competitions running in your area. And then for 30 pound, it's a lot. There's a lot more like upkeep that's involved with it. I believe in the United States, the only other 30 pound competitions are Motorama, and then Spark in LA, and NHRL as well. So with that, it's like it's very similar to a 1 pound arena or a 3 pound arena, but obviously scaled up. One thing with us is that all of our floors are made out of metal, which is good because unlike if you've ever been to NHRL, you've seen the floors after one full day of fighting, and it's like they're completely chewed up. So metal helps in that sense, meaning it's a lot of funds in the start, but those floors will last you maybe like 2 or 3 years. Our floors this year hadn't been replaced for 5 years. So you can see in a couple of our matches, it's robots are like getting their forks stuck underneath where the panels meet together, and it's like one panel being like lifted up by the beater of kill switch, and it's like ripping the arena apart. So that's something that going into next year we're going to try and replace. But again, it's like how much funds do you have available? So like every year we learn. In 2024, what happened was Ryan's robot actually Crack. It caught a so Crack is a hammer saw, and it axed into another robot, and it pierced directly into the lipo battery, and that exploded and shut down the event for 3 hours because we didn't have a proper ventilation system. So going into 2025, one of our major goals was, obviously we don't want a shutdown of 3 hours. That's going to just be horrible for everyone. And also just generally safety. Like we had to have firefighters come in 2024 when that event happened and everything. And that was a whole ordeal that we had to deal with. So having a proper ventilation system set up for 2025 meant that if in the case of any lipo fire, we would be safe, and our competitors would be safe, and all the people watching the event in person would also be safe, and like there would be no risk or danger in that sense. And it ended up working out really well because we had 2 lipo batteries this year, or lipo battery fires this year, and both of them were resolved within 20 minutes, and everyone was safe. And because of our ventilation system, everything was completely just resolved. Now the thing with that is that is a chunk of our cash. I believe that was like 20% of it, or like 30% of our budget this year. And then the other 70% went into rebuilding our arena walls to go from single layer polycarbonate to double layer polycarbonate, which ended up working out well because Ryan's other robot, Whack, it got flung up into the wall, and there's a picture of him holding up his robot at the end of the match next to just a giant circle in the wall that is like half an inch deep, and it's just a giant gash. So if that had breached the arena and we didn't have a second layer of polycarbonate, that would have been another thing that could have gone really poorly. But because we ended up actually putting in double layered polycarbonate, that was another part of safety that we could resolve as well. And it's just like, you have to prioritize kind of what you want to do. If you want to get your event starting like as soon as possible, then I would prioritize getting everything as safe as possible. And if you have, if it's like a smaller arena or something, that's totally fine. If you want to get your events running as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And you kind of read my mind, Uday, because my next question was going to be, if somebody's trying to start this type of event new, what should they know and everything? So that was really helpful. Now I did want to make sure that I let you both as well. If people want to either find out more about what your future events are going to be, like following that information, where do they find that? And if you have any other sponsors that you'd like to shout out, please feel free to do that as well.
Yeah, Ryan, you can go first.
I think the best place for people to actually find out about iRobotics and RoboBrawl and what we are doing is to go to our website, which I believe is iRobotics.com.
iRobotics.illinois.edu, I think. Yeah.
If you look up iRobotics, and it's not the one about the Roombas, but it's like a big orange eye with a gear, that's us. And if you follow the links in there, you can find access to our public Discord server. So we have an iRobotics Discord server and a public RoboBrawl Discord server. And the RoboBrawl Discord server is where you can learn about our upcoming events. That's where we announce everything and where we kind of communicate with our competitors.
Yeah, adding on to that, we have follow us on Instagram at RoboBrawl and at iRobotics. And if you're interested in competing at RoboBrawl this year, we're shooting for 40 plus 30-pound robots, trying to make it the biggest in the world. Yeah, join our Discord. I believe there's a link on our website, which is robobrawl.illinois.edu. And yeah, come say hi or like watch our live. Oh yeah, watch our live stream as well. We have a bunch of VODs on YouTube. Just search RoboBrawl UIUC.
Yeah, I'll try and throw some of those links in the description of this video. So yeah, definitely check it out, especially if you're in the Midwest. I mean, one of the reasons why I decided to make an event happen is because I really want to see more prominent combat robotics in the Midwest, because NHRL is great, but traveling out there is also a lot, as I'm sure that you both know. So
we're very familiar with the drive.
It took us 14 hours last time. That was a whole...
I had to solo this last one because there were no other drivers. Or our other driver got food poisoning, so...
Oh no!
So
yeah, like we want to get more going and get more people coming out to these events. So definitely check out RoboBrawl, check out what they're doing, and with iRobotics and everything. So yes, there is still more to come on this episode. Like I said, we're talking about different perspectives and things like that. So we're going to be talking to some folks who come at things from maybe a new to event running perspective and also very, very seasoned perspective. So stay tuned to this episode, and there will be a lot more. All right, and we are back, and this part of the episode, I'm focusing a little bit more, specifically on kind of getting events started in general when you've never done it before. I mean, maybe, like you've been involved in other events and stuff, but kind of doing your own event is a big deal. And so I have 3 event organizers with me from the Midwest, all of whose events I've attended. So I can certify that they were all really great, awesome events. So I have George, Emily, and Jair with me to talk about running events. So welcome.
Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having us.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're coming off of the heels of my first event. And I know Emily and George, you've kind of started the process this year as well. So I think the first thing I want to talk about, and now, Jared, there you can bring that energy now of like talking about getting an event off of the ground and like kind of the building blocks to do that, because there's a lot that goes into it, right? Like probably way more than people imagine.
Well, a lot of it is you build upon the last event you ran. Every time you're wanting to bring it bigger, you're wanting to bring more. But that first one, it doesn't need to be that fancy. Just do it is what it comes down to. Because you can be so afraid of, I've got to have this. I have to have that. I need all these things to be able to get this off the ground. But really, you don't. People will still show up if all you have is a box and 1 or 2 people doing the judging for it.
Yeah, and see, that's my problem. I'm such a perfectionist that it is very hard for me to be like, this is fine. But yeah, Emily and George, if you each want to talk about like your perspective, because you each did, an event this year and both went really well. So, talk about like how that went to do it for the first time.
I'll let her go first.
It makes sense. Her event was before yours. So.
Exactly.
I noticed there's not a whole lot of stuff in Ohio for MRCA events and also non 15-pound events. There's a lot of high school and college events in Ohio, and there's Horde, but that was it. And we never had any ranked events in Ohio, and that was kind of where I came from, and wanting to start something in Ohio. And I guess the hardest thing was just making sure the date worked out and making sure we had the help we needed. And then I also hosted it about 2 hours from where I live, so I wanted to make sure that we had a good venue and it wasn't too terribly far from everyone else, because most of the MRCA is further west and I'm kind of on the east side of Ohio. So that was kind of difficult, just that sort of organization. And then just making sure we had people to judge and we had the help that we needed to at least have a pretty good event. We were lucky we paired with RSL like for our first one. We learned a ton from them, which was great. And I think like our next one's gonna be even better.
Yeah, so I also earlier this year we hosted our first event. Is kind of the same thing. Being in Indiana, there was nothing. It was a ghost town. Was traveling 3-4 hours at a minimum to get to events to compete. So it kind of is one of those. It be the change you want to see. So if you want events closer, put on events. For us, the first one we did, we worked with an event that was existing, similar to what you did with Circle City Clash. And so we were able to get kind of an established location, an established event that had its own audience to bring people in to watch. So we had a really good crowd. We did 2 days, and it worked out really great, even though it was the hottest day of the year so far at that point.
Can confirm it was really hot.
It was really hot.
Yeah, running a robot event in an outdoor-ish venue when the AC breaks or like the power goes out, I should say, and there's no AC is suboptimal, but it was still a lot of fun. Stuff happens and you make the most of it. And I think both of you made a really good point about like kind of that being the change that you want to see type of thing, because obviously I've been in Indiana the entire time that I've been covering combat robotics, and there's not a lot here. And so it was one of those, like, I wanted to bring more events to an area that's close to me to kind of get things going here. Gonna be moving to Michigan soon and joining Michigan Gang, but that doesn't mean that I'm not gonna still try and get events going in Indiana, because it's good to have them everywhere. I talk a bit about the safety aspect, because I mean, I'd like to hit on that a lot because it's really important. And when you're running your first event, I think that it's like easy to overlook some of that and like not think about like, oh, I need to make sure I have this and this. So just for all of you to talk a little bit about like the super importance of safety, because if it's not safe, then people aren't going to come to events. So
Obviously, we have minimums for what the arena needs to be, thickness of the polycarb. That are non-negotiable, really. You can't afford to do less than those minimums, which those minimums are like 1/4 inch for ant weights, or at least 3/8 for beetle weights, although we'd prefer to see 1/2 inch. And of course, you got to have a bucket of sand for batteries, stuff like that. Those are things that even at your first event, you need to have. Those are safety things. Those aren't just, quality of life. They're safety stuff that you just got to have. People to also help you out with that is really great as well, because if you're standing behind the arena, it's going to be difficult for you to quickly get to that robot that's on fire and get it into the box. Although, the first Michigan mashup, we didn't really know what we were doing. We had a sand bucket, but it wasn't big enough for most of the robots. It was just me and my buddy running it. These other two event organizers, their very first event was far more polished than the first Michigan mashup event.
Yeah, to that point, just having competed for 2 years and going to a lot of polished events, seeing what even at mashup where you are at now, like that was the first one. It's definitely not at that level anymore. So being able to see, you get an idea of what you need, you get an idea of what's safe. And then for me, I actually was involved in behind the scenes stuff with just seeing how other with the planning for Circle City as well. Like I saw how some of that went with RSL, and I was able to just like borrow stuff from them, like knowing the size of your space, knowing where you're going to put things in the room before you even show up, so that you know where your doors are. So if you need to get out quickly, you can do so, knowing what you need to keep clear. So if you do have a robot on fire, getting to that door, not tripping over something or tripping over someone to get there. And then also to that point, one of the key things is your venue's really going to set the tone for things like insurance, event insurance that they want. So normally that's just working it out with your venue ahead of time. They're going to give you numbers, and then when you go to your provider, you shop out that quote, you can just tell them what numbers of coverage you need. I personally, since I'm fortunate enough to work in fire protection, so I had access to CO2 fire extinguishers. And then also just from my background of working around manufacturing, knowing that fire cans exist that are meant for things like oily rags or things that could spark up a flame, and have a lid and a foot pedal that pivots that lid open. So picking up stuff like that off Amazon and just planning ahead, knowing that things can happen. And then, like I said, just knowing your floor plan, knowing where you're going to put things before you even show up to the venue is key.
Yeah, and along with what they said, having test boxes for people to test the robots and making sure like there's a sand bucket right there because we can't, watch everything all at once. So, holding people accountable to these, safety things too. Like if you see someone, walking around without a weapon lock in their robot, like letting them know, or, telling any of the people helping you to keep an eye out for that, just, to make sure that your event looks polished to everybody. I went to an event once and there's weapon locks off and people are spinning up things, and I'm like, I don't want that at my event where there's, risk of something happening. So just, and also announcing that before you even start, I think that helps a lot too, because there are a lot of new people who don't know better. They might, be driving their robot on the ground thinking it's fine, but you just never know what's going to happen. So just being cautious and keeping your eyes open for anything that's happening, and also just making an announcement at the beginning, I think has been, really helpful in all the events that I've gone to.
Yeah, and then you always have people at different skill levels, and if you've competed more, you're going to know people from competing in events in a similar area. So you can also generally your elder competitors, I guess you could say, or at least the ones that have competed for a while, are really good at helping you police the pits because they don't want anything to happen as much as you don't want anything to happen. So as you get to know who those people are as well, like they're not there to help you, but they do kind of help you in that way because they can say, hey, keep an eye on that guy. And you can bring that up in like a safety brief as well of like, hey guys, like if you've been around the scene for a while, you know what the do's and don'ts are. Like you don't have to go confront anybody, but just let us know and we can take care of it because we want everybody to be safe. And just making that your point is that it's not to say anything or do anything or tell anybody to leave. It's just we want everybody to be safe and go home at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. Now, another thing that I think is a good topic to cover, because it was something that was a debate for me at my event, but like for somebody that's doing it for the first time, what are some considerations that somebody should take as to what weight classes or what types of robots to run? Because there's so many different things you can do. I don't think that like ferries are quite as popular in this area as they are in some areas, but like, there's plastic ants, there's regular ants, there's beetle weights. So what are the types of considerations that people should be thinking about when they decide what class and like to run multiple classes potentially?
I absolutely love ferry weights, but yeah, they aren't very popular in the Midwest area. So I feel like things like ferry weights and plastic ant weights are great beginner classes because they aren't quite as expensive. Ferry weights can be a little bit difficult to build actually because they're so small, but they tend to be not quite as competitive as some of the classes like Beetles. Beetles, because of NHRL, is a super competitive class. Ant weights, because of MRCA, also quite a competitive class. But ferry weights and plastic ant weights are classes that we don't rank. They tend to be a little bit less competitive, much easier to get into for a beginner. Plus, you don't need to cut metal weapons and things like that. You just print one. Also, your arena doesn't need to be quite as solid for those classes because a ferry weight only actually needs a 1/8 polycarbonate, whereas an ant weight, even plastics might be okay in a 1/8. I'm not. Don't quote me on that one though.
George is shaking his head.
He's like, no, I don't believe it.
I ran plastic ants, and the level of plastic ants, even just over the course of this really being the first year you see more of them, it's gotten up there to where I would consider them in the same type of arena as a normal, I guess you would call it, ant weight.
So 1/4 inch then,
Yeah.
polycarb. That seems reasonable.
Also for me, like I didn't want to have an event so big that it was overwhelming for me. I actually ended up getting more beetles than ants, which is very unlike a lot of the other MRCA events. So I actually ended up opening up more beetle spots because we kind of figured we could handle just a few more. I did not want to have, an insane amount of robots when we're kind of learning the ropes, and I didn't want people to have to be there till like 10 p.m. or later. So, we limited it so we could handle it. And we kind of had a slow start of the day, and, just because we're learning and we're trying to make sure we're doing everything right. It got better as the day went on, and, the help with RSL was great for that. But I think my biggest advice is like, don't try to take on too much more than you think you can handle for your first one. Like, it can always get bigger later. Because you don't want to have an event run super late, or be there past the time that you need to. And I've seen a few events where that happens. Which, there's nothing wrong with that, but but like mine had a hard cutoff that I had to be out of there at a certain time. So I wanted to make sure like we weren't going to run too many robots and not hit that mark.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
Jair's fortunate enough that his event's in the middle of nowhere, so there's nothing else to do anyway. So you might as well just stay there all night.
No, you brought up a good point about timing, because I was actually going to ask about that as well. That's, I think, another thing that people that are new to it may struggle with is, what are all of your tips for that time management aspect of it? Because, like you said, I've been to events that have run pretty late into the evening, and I've been to events that have wrapped up early in the afternoon. So there's a balance there to kind of straddle. And I'm just curious from all of you, like, what does that time management look like to make it efficient?
For me, I chose to be focused more on getting people into the arena than trying to force any type of staying within a time frame. Unfortunately, when you run your event with a certain type of fight order, like modified Swiss, you can't really proceed to the next round until everyone's finished in the round before that. So you do have to kind of like, hey, we have to get you in there now, and if you're not ready, then we need to see what our options are. A lot of that is experience, which, luckily for me, I had a great group of people there with me helping to run the event that also had experience. So just I was able to kind of play off of who you know and your own experience as a competitor to kind of get an idea of, do we need to speed up? Do we need to slow down? I know I've been to a lot of events hosted by a lot of different types of event organizers. And for me personally, the ones that everybody's a little bit more chill. And if you got something going on, like, go take 5 minutes and figure it out, always seem to just be a better environment. So that's the feel we went for. And for us, thankfully, all of our competitors were great about being ready when they needed to be ready. And if they did need a few minutes, like, we had other competitors that were also already ready, so we could easily, they weren't really slowing us down if they needed a few minutes. That's the other key. If you've got, nobody in the arena, and also you don't have your other fights ready to go, like, you need to have someone there. So getting 2 or 3 fights deep, kind of thinking of not just what's going on right this minute, but what's going on 5 minutes from now, because you got 2 minute fights, you got 2 minutes, you need 2 minutes to get in and out, and just kind of knowing what that flow is going to be is key to keeping things rolling. And I think we finished up at like 6 or 7 on Saturday with 40 something robots. So I think we did a pretty good job of it.
I think a good point that George makes as well in the last 2 times he's talked is about some of the competitors that you have will almost, if they've been to these events relatively frequently, they will almost help you run the event a little bit. They will tell the other people, hey, you need to be up there now. They will tell them, hey, you can't do that. Or, hey, look, there's a box over there for you to put your robot in and test. That's makes it a little easier when people have been at these events quite a bit, and they're all kind of similar. Of course, Emily was using the RSL Robot Smashing League, which they are very experienced in these things, and they've been helping quite a bit around the Midwest area.
Yeah, one of the things that they really kind of harp on is, once you're done with your fight, like you need to go away to a different table or something so we can start loading the next fight in. And I think that really helps keep things moving along. We had a table like right outside of the arena. So like when people are done, they can sit there and talk like, oh my gosh, look what you did to my robot, and have that whole conversation that we all, have when we're finished. I think, sometimes that can really slow the day down if you have people like standing right outside the arena, like talking to each other about the robot, which, we love having that conversation, but it delays getting that next fight in the arena. One, and I like George said, I really liked his like kind of chill, and honestly, Jair's event too. They're both, kind of chill. And, if you're not ready, you need like 2 more minutes, like we'll run another fight real quick, get it in the arena, and move on. Obviously with MRCA rules, like we have a 20-minute postponement that you get automatically for your robot. So, if you need
Single one,
that,
though.
like, yeah, a single one.
A single one.
Yeah. So if you need that, like we're gonna run fights until your 20 minutes is up, and then call you back up. But having someone that's running and getting people ready is also really helpful if you have the ability to have an extra person to do that, and just like having someone go around like, hey, you're up in 2 fights, hey, you're up in 1 fight, just to keep things moving along and get in people's brains that they're about to be going.
Something that you may not think about, because I didn't think about it for like 5 events before we finally did it, was put a number at the end of people's table and then mark their bot with that number on your sign-in sheet or whatever. Made a big difference for my runner, because he could be like, okay, this robot is at table 21. It narrowed it down for him quite a bit. Just a little tip right there for wannabe EOs.
I think the way I handled that was having a PA, because then I could just yell for people over the mic instead of having to send a runner to go find them.
Mm.
So that worked out pretty well.
Oh, your PA wasn't very good, though. It wasn't very loud.
Well, when I started the day, it was echoing inside the building, and I turned it down. So, but as the day went on and things got louder, it probably needed to have been turned up a little.
Yeah, and again, I think these are things that you learn, which is good, because once you do one event, you take all of the learnings from that event and kind of put it into the next one. We kind of talked about location a little bit earlier, but again, it's one of those that I think is a big challenge for people, that if you're somebody who wants to run an event and you don't already have a venue, what are suggestions of avenues that people could go down, like places that they could contact that would be good potential venues for a robotics event?
Honestly, church gyms are super cheap. And that's what I did where I did mine. It was like $200 for the night before and the whole day, which was super cheap. One downfall is we didn't have internet, so we had internet, but it wasn't great internet, so we couldn't live stream. So I was kind of bummed about that. But at the same time, like the cost effectiveness of that, I couldn't beat it. It was right next to a pizza place. Like it was, just in a good spot. They even were like, please come back. We loved having you. Like some of our members came and watched. So it's a cool way to, get to know some people in the community. I had some random like friends from high school show up, which was also really cool. So yeah, church gyms, honestly, pretty good. Community centers also could be really good. Like I have a community center in my hometown. I was looking at hosting there. Schools can be tricky because they have specific rules for what they're allowed, especially colleges. So it'll just depend on the college and the school, but sometimes that's an option as well.
What I did was I just found an event that already existed and was like, hey, we should fight robots there. And they said, sure.
It was a printer thing.
I know, it was perfect.
So that was
3D
perfect. I mean, that's what most robots are nowadays, is 3D printed.
And
along
same
with that,
thing though, they loved having us, so we got invited back for next year the day we're packing everything up. So
did you have to pay a considerable amount for that space, George?
nope.
Oh,
I didn't pay anything for it.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
So
That's the best way.
well, to that point, that's one of the advantages of piggybacking off an existing event is they're already paying for a space. So they can offer you space at a cheaper rate, or potentially if they see value in having you there, they're going to just offer space to you they may already have available. And that's what worked out for both events in Indiana that I've been involved in. Is we were able to work with an existing event that was already paying for space and saw value in having us there competing.
I think that is a great point right there, because the Michigan Mashup also takes advantage of, well, it takes advantage of my job, really. I work at a company that has a space down below it that I'm able to utilize at a significant discount because I work there. I think a lot of it is looking around at your community and seeing where there might be space that you could use. Maybe it's not even used in the capacity of get-togethers currently, but maybe it could be.
Well, and I mean, I've been to events in banquet halls, in some guy's garage, in bars, in church gyms, in existing events at fairgrounds like ours was. So there's all sorts of National Guard armories,
VFW halls are a great location.
VFW halls. You know, Joseph's in Chicago, that was an event center that he was involved with. So same thing there of being able to work with somebody that can give you a little better rate. So I mean, there's tons of potential, and just looking around at what's already happening and where it's happening can give you an idea of what to look for, who to go to, and the biggest thing with that is like, what are they going to tell you? No. And I mean, and if you get a no, just find somebody else, and eventually you're going to get a yes. So that's the key thing, is not just, yeah, if you ask around and 4 or 5 people tell you no, don't just stop there and be like, oh, well, I guess it's not going to happen. Just keep asking, because you're going to get a yes at some point. Somebody's going to either know the TV show BattleBots, they're going to know NHRL from TikTok clips. They're going to be like, oh, you're talking about that? And then they're going to be like, yeah, I would love to see that. And that's what happened for me, is this is what we're talking about doing. And then they saw the value in it. They saw the potential to bring people in and keep people engaged in their event, and they offered us a space.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it works out sometimes. Kind of the last thing that I want to talk about, because again, I'm trying to touch on like anything that people could think of related to doing an event, and that is the importance / logistics of streaming or recording the event. Obviously people can do an event without that, but I think it has benefits, especially in the sense that if people can watch your event that couldn't make it there, then they're able to see it and they're like, oh, that looks cool, maybe I want to go next time. And there's some competitors that just with how big NHRL has gotten, that's kind of what people see, is that, have being on YouTube and stuff like that. And so people like going to events where they know that they can watch the robot fight on YouTube. So there's a lot of those factors in there, but just talking a little bit about the importance of that versus like the logistics of actually making it happen.
In the MRCA, it is quite important to us that it is at least recorded to be posted later on, simply because it allows us to be able to see how the event went, how it was run, if there's any really big questions we may have, because these events are, a lot of them are separateness, I would say, from the board of the MRCA. So we do want to have at least a slight amount of oversight in those. But there's also just the matter of a significant added value from having that uploaded somewhere. The event isn't one and done. It's uploaded to YouTube. People can see it for years to come.
That's actually what I was going to say too. Like,
yeah,
we have to. So it is actually in our rules that we want EOs to record it. It also helps us like with rules decisions in the future. Just when things happen, like, do we need to make a rule for this, or do we need to look more into this? For us and Circle City, like we didn't have the best internet to be able to stream live, and which is fine. We were able to upload it later. One thing that we did that I really thought was helpful is we had like a kind of a layout that was already preloaded. We used part of RSL's layout, but we kind of modified it to make it work for us. But we had a layout like already ready to go. So we were able to capture the video, but also have like the overlay of the two bots that were fighting as well as the timer. So we could, we don't have to edit that in later. So that was really helpful. We had two cameras and then mounted in two different spots, so we were able to capture like if something is kind of in the corner, it's hard to see, we can split over to the other video. We were really lucky. One of Dustin's friends, was the other EO, runs a lot of Vex tournaments, so he helped us a ton with our streaming, and I think he will be in the future. Sorry, Micah. But it is it was really, really helpful to have him. He just sat there and just did everything for us at the beginning of the day, and it was phenomenal. And then kind of going back through the video, like we learned we had some sound issues, and something that we can improve on in the future. But for our first event, I'm pretty proud of how the stream went, and how it looked at the end. And we were able to get it edited within like 2 days to get the dead space out and get it uploaded.
Yeah, and can confirm Ashley's an excellent commentator. So
I had so much fun commentating. Like that was so fun.
Yeah,
George,
fight calling's
anything to
more fun
add?
than you think. Yeah, the thing I would add is Ethan helped me host our event, and he handled the bulk of that. But one thing to think of is, in our case, we recorded it just video straight off of a camera on a tripod pointed into the arena. Is like Emily said, is you have to put something on the screen so that people know what they're looking at, and doing that after the fact is way more difficult, because that's what I'm dealing with now, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks after the event, is editing down all this video and then having to put all those overlays of robot names and all that stuff, who the winners are. Unfortunately, in our case, we didn't have audio either, so there's just a whole editing process, and thinking of not just the time at the event and the time hosting the event and the time planning the event, is the time after the event, preparing all of that stuff and what it's going to take. And do you know somebody that already edits video on the side, or does something similar to that? Like Emily said, they have someone that they know is that can help with that. Because it's like I said, there's a lot of time. You've got full day for an event, but it's months leading up to, and days and weeks after, of working with any potential sponsors to get the prizes sent out to winners, and getting video edited, getting things posted up, getting results entered into websites for both, in our case, MRCA and Robot Combat events. You have to go put all your information in on who won, what place everybody was, so that they can get their point scored correctly for those finals events. So just keeping that in mind, as well as what time it's going to take to run an event before, during, and after.
That sounds scary, George. You're gonna scare people off.
It's
not that bad.
It's not that bad. I mean, honestly, it's not, but it is a consideration of, making sure that you talk about time management on the day of, but time management of, you don't want to get the week beforehand and be like, I don't have my insurance policy yet. I haven't sent this information to my venue. I haven't, found a sponsor. I haven't, you have to kind of think, to set some goalposts leading up to it, of, by this date, I need to have these things figured out, and just managing your time outside of just the day of.
Don't do
Yeah.
it during a busy season in your life is
Yeah.
really what he's saying. Like if
Yeah.
you know at a certain point in the year that you're super busy, don't host an event during that. Like I'm a professor, I cannot host an event during school. I will probably cry. So I made sure it was after school was over.
Yeah, that's very true. Which is why I'm glad I have just about a whole year lead up to the next one. So, yeah, all very good points, and I think that like this is all helpful information for anybody that's looking to run events. And like Jair said very early on in the episode, just do it. Like there's so much I guess demand out there for people that want to go to events all the time. So like especially if you live in an area where there's not events happening already, it's a great idea to just start one up, because that's how we continue to grow things. So we have lots more to come in this episode. Like I said, I'm trying to cover this from all angles, so getting lots of varied feedback, opinions, things like that. So if you are enjoying this, continue watching, and there is more to come with Chuck and Jeremy from Carolina Combat Robotics. So stay tuned. All right, we are back for the final segment in this episode, talking about events, event organization, getting started. And I thought it would be a great opportunity to feature people who have been doing this for a long time, know the ins and outs of event organization and can speak about it a little bit more in depth. So I have Chuck and Jeremy here with Carolina Combat Robotics, who I haven't had the pleasure of having on the show before. So very exciting to have you both. Welcome.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely. So first, before anything else, I'm just curious to hear the background, because I've talked to people from a lot of different leagues, but I don't know a ton about Carolina Combat Robotics. And so I'd love to hear the background on how y'all got started and, all of that stuff for other folks that may not be as familiar with it.
Right. So when Jeremy was, I think, about 13 years old, he was watching Comedy Central, of course, and saw BattleBots and said, "I want to do that." I said, "Yeah, right." But just so happens that my wife worked with the wife of Lawrence Fair, who competed on Robot Wars and Robotica, and so we hooked up with him. He mentored us through our first robot, and we actually competed at the what is it called, Robot Street Fight in Salisbury, North Carolina.
North Carolina Robot Street Fight.
Yeah, Chris Hamel put that on, and so he did that for a few years. We went to that, and then he stopped doing them, and we didn't have a place to compete. It was within reason nearby. So we said, well, let's just do it ourselves. So I actually purchased Chris Handel's arena that he had, and it was not strong enough for the robots that were actually competing. So I cut it down a little bit, doubled up on the Lexan, and we held a few events with what was the size of that? 15 by 30, I think, something like that.
16 by 32.
Yeah. So we held a few events with that arena, but it was just we didn't have hardly anybody coming in and competing. It would take 100 man hours to set it up, and then nobody would show up. Well, just 2 or 3 robots we'd have. So I put it in storage, and then a couple of years later, I moved to Charlotte. And while I was in Charlotte, I decided I was going to build a bug arena. I had some extra parts from the other arena that I had. So I did that. I put together a bug arena, and I was kind of searching for a place to do it. And I got an email one day from the Shield Museum. They were having a Girl Scout camp, and they had booked a guy to come talk about robotics, but at the last minute he backed out. So they were desperate. They were desperate to have somebody. So we said, sure, we'll come. And we put on a little demonstration and set up our little bug arena for the Girl Scouts and put a demo on. And I think they kind of liked that, didn't they, Jeremy? What
Yeah.
part did they like best?
Well, we got to do a demo by beating up on some Barbie dolls, and so all the girls at the Girl Scout camp loved that for some reason.
So once we did that, we talked to the event organizer. Actually, because of that, Jeremy got a job there because he got to know the people there at the museum, and Jeremy got a summer job there the next summer. And we talked to the event organizer there at the museum, and we decided to start Clash of the Bots. And so that's where about every June we'll do an event there. We've been doing that for, gosh, how long? Since 2010, I think. Yeah, the first one was in 2010. So that's been a lot of fun teaming up with them and doing those. And from that, other events have come up that like Hickory Bot Battles. Some of the people from Hickory came to Clash of the Bots and they wanted to do something up there. So the Science Center in Hickory had us put on events up there. So we've been doing those two pretty regular. Every year we do those. And we also do a small plastic ant competition every winter, right around Christmas time, call that Wreck the Halls. And let's see, and we help out with a lot of other events up and down the East Coast too. We run the Beatles up at Motorama, go down to Orlando Maker Fair and help out down there. So it's never a dull moment. We've always got something going on.
It certainly sounds that way. And I love to hear the backstory that this kind of all started with Comedy Central BattleBots, because I know it certainly did for me. And there's not many leagues that really have been around for such a long time. So the fact that you all have such longevity with what you've been doing, I think is pretty amazing, because people have interest, and sometimes like that fades and things go away, and it's nice to see that you've been able to sustain that. Now in the experience that you have, like for those who are trying to start events today, what would you say are the biggest pieces of advice that you could give to somebody that you would say, like, these are the most important things that you really need to have together to make your first event successful?
Good question. I would say for us though, like it's always been more of like a family thing. Like it was a way that me and my dad could bond as father son. It was a cool father son activity and gave us something fun to do every year. I think that's probably why we kept doing it, even whenever, like, especially in the beginning, whenever we didn't have that many people starting out. It was just, we did it just because it was fun. So yeah, I mean, I would say that's probably the first thing is do it because it's fun. Like,
Yeah, we started out doing it so we would have a place close by to compete. But when you're running an event, it's very hard to compete at that event. I found that out several times when I put my robot in the arena and the batteries would not be charged and different things like that. The robot would not be ready because I wouldn't have the time to spend on it because I'm having to run the event. So, but organization is probably the key. Making sure you're organized up front, having volunteers to help. You got to have those volunteers. Of course, you got to have a good arena, and something that the builders are going to like to compete in, and something that's going to be strong. One thing, the Campbell College that's in North Carolina, and they started running events each year, and they did a really good, neat thing. They actually did a Zoom call with several other event organizers and some builders also, and just try to get everybody's input on things that they needed to do, which is a really good idea. You want to make sure you talk to other event organizers to figure out what you don't know. what else? Part of our organization, we use a lot of different software to help with the arena. Jeremy, by trade, is a software engineer, so that comes in handy.
Yeah, I wrote some of the software that we do from scratch, or I guess I've gone through several iterations of the software, but just different programs to be able to run the arena, be able to press the buttons, to play the sounds whenever they need to do the countdowns and all that. I mean, you don't have to be a software engineer to do all that. You can just get by with a stopwatch if you need to. But I guess it makes it a little bit more fun for the competitors with the fancy sounds and all that.
I've had some people comment about the reason they like to come to our events is because, probably because we make them feel special. I'm not really sure why, but I do try to get to know the people and talk to them and make them feel like we appreciate them coming to the events. So that's kind of neat. We try to always have the event where we can serve lunch to the people. We have snacks for them and drinks and lunch. So, because if you break for lunch, you know not everybody's going to come back on time. So that helps keep the event rolling and also helps keep the people fed and happy.
Yeah, and one thing that you talked about was like the importance of volunteers. And I think that, that's probably one of the biggest barriers to having events is because sure, a couple people could want to run an event, but you need a little bit more than that to make an event successful when it comes to judges and, other folks that have different jobs within the event. I want to talk a little bit about, something that I've observed is that just like in combat robotics, a lot of people will see like these robots and say, oh, I could never build anything like that until they learn and realize that like there's lots of tools out there to help them do that. And I think volunteering for a robot event is also similar, that a lot of people are like, I wouldn't know how to judge, or, like I wouldn't know how to do that, but it just takes being taught and like maybe going to some events and observing it. And I think anybody really could judge. You just have to understand the rules. So I guess talk about like that piece of it, of finding people who are willing and like can understand and like do the functions that they need to do in those roles.
Well, at some of our events we have sign-ups previous to the event for judges. Like at Hickory, they actually, Dirk is one of my the guys that competes with us, and he volunteers at the science center there, so he helps run everything up in Hickory. But he'll get all the judges and everything lined up ahead of time, have people sign up at his work, which sponsors the event, and through the science center. So that's really good. And most of them are, well, it's about half and half. Some will be experienced and some will be not experienced. So like you said, the not experienced ones, will have a little briefing with them, have the rules available right there for them to look at, and have an easy judging sheet that they can go by. And it helps them to feel comfortable. And throughout the day, they get better and better at it. And we rarely have any issues. Of course, you're always going to have somebody that doesn't agree, but we rarely have that happen. Some events are more laid back, like the Wreck the Halls event, and we may end up having to have myself and Jeremy help judge, or people that come to watch or come with some of the teams may have to help, and we'll just pull people in. But
well, we also do on the more laid back side. Sometimes whenever or if the judges don't agree, then we'll pull out the Rock'em Sock'em robot.
We have done that before.
Yeah, and we'll decide the winner on the whoever beats the guy at Rock and Sock'em Robots.
I have never heard that method of determining a winner, but I think that that's super appropriate. So
Everybody loves it whenever we do it.
Yeah, except the one that loses the Rock'em Sock'em.
Right. Well. But yeah, like, and it's probably going to be difficult, especially if it's the first time you're starting an event. If it's, and depending on like what kind of resources you have behind you. I mean, someone like Campbell College, who has all the resources of an entire university or college behind them, they have a lot more resources at their disposal. But like, if you're just getting started and it's just a mom and pop thing, then maybe it's going to be like you and a couple other people that maybe like a couple of your buddies, your friends, that's judging at first. But like, well, I mean, once you make the connections, then people get to see your event, that it's a good event, then people will be excited to come and to volunteer. Like my dad said, the people at the museums, they just reach out to anybody and they say, hey, we're looking for volunteers to be able to sit and watch awesome robot combat all day long. You get the best seat in the house and we feed you.
We have had people that's never competed in robotics, but they love coming and watching, and they love to come judge. We had one girl that she would come every year and help judge just because she loved doing it. So it was kind of cool. And
if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
That is kind of true. And you know, one thing, especially because you all have been doing it for so long, talk about like the growth of the sport in general, because like you said in the beginning, you might have like a handful of people that show up with robots, and now I mean like any given of the more larger leagues across the country, you have wait lists of people trying to get into these events. And so it's come a long way, and it's almost like the inverse, where in the old days, BattleBots was just very dominant and like that was the thing. And now I think the smaller robots are more popular because they're more accessible to people.
Yeah, it just blows me away when our registration goes live. It just about locks up Builder's database because so many people trying to get on within the first 20 minutes of going live. Usually we have a waiting list starting already. So it has come a long way in that manner there, because like I said, we would struggle getting a full field, and the past 4 or 5 years, it's really taken off. Of course, we've gotten more known on the East Coast, and so a lot of people like to come from all up and down the East Coast to our events, and so ours does fill up really fast.
I think we're at the point though where, I mean, since it does fill up so fast, like we definitely need more EOs. We need more people to build more arenas so that everybody can fight and more people can get into it, because especially with these, I mean, and I guess my dad and I are trying to figure out maybe a better way to do our registration, because if you're not there within the first 20 minutes, you might not get to come and compete at our event. So to try and make it more available and accessible to maybe new builders, or I don't know, there's different things that we're throwing around trying to figure out how to best do that. But yeah, that's definitely I guess it's a good problem to have, having too many people. It's a lot better than having not as many people.
Yeah, but I agree. More events on the East Coast, especially around the North Carolina area. There's so many builders that have come up around this area that we could definitely use more events. Anybody in the area that's interested, we'll help them all we can.
Yeah, contact us and we'll help you out.
Yeah, for sure. And on that note, something I really wanted to talk about, because I think, again, it's one of those bigger barriers to having an event, is, the arena itself, because that there is a cost to that, especially because safety is so important in combat robotics. Like, you can't slap together a cage and have it not be safe, and not, like, having to worry about breaches and things like that. So what's the best way to efficiently put together an arena at a decent price, but also still keeping safety in mind?
I don't know if there's one for a decent price, but the way Lexan has gone up.
Polycarbonate is very expensive.
Yeah. There's a few different designs. Like, our design has worked really well over the years. I've been able to improve it a little bit at a time. Because when we started out, of course, we were just running one layer of 1/4 inch Lexan on the arena. And over the years, what's that?
Yeah, like that was back before robots got a lot more powerful. Like the power in these robots, especially recently, has gotten pretty insane.
Yeah. So we were able to double up our Lexan, go to 2 layers of 1/4 inch, and that was pretty good. But we also even went above and beyond that. Now we have an 1/8 inch layer just hanging inside with an air gap, probably 2 or 3 inch air gap between that and the 1/2 inch of Lexan. So the 1/8
That
inch
helped a lot.
Yeah, the 1/8 inch, which doesn't seem like much, but it absorbs so much energy that very rarely the thicker Lexan ever takes a hit. So little tricks like that will help on the expense side. It's a lot cheaper to replace that 1/8 inch piece than it is the 1/4 inch and 1/2 inch Lexan.
Having really good bumpers so that your Lexan's not getting hit as much. Like have a good space along the walls.
Yeah, have good bumpers. Another arena that I've liked that I saw was the Palm Beach Bots Arena that Andy has down in Florida. It's really neat. It goes together without any tools. It's what's that called? It's the racks like they use in Home Depot and Lowe's. Those big racks that they have, the teardrops. What do you call those, Jeremy?
Yeah, I think it's like teardrop channel. What it's used for, like putting the shelf together, basically. Those are pretty cool.
So you can get those used pretty inexpensively and build the frame that way, but you still have that cost of the Lexan, which is the big cost.
One thing my dad just mentioned that is important to, especially if you don't have a place that you can build or keep your arena set up all the time, which is most people, to design the arena in such a way that it's easy to put together and take apart.
Yeah.
Not too many bolts that you have to, as many things as possible to do without tools is good. But obviously the best is to have a place where you can just have it set up permanently. But
we don't have that. We don't have that luxury of keeping it set up all the time. So we actually have a trailer that after every event, we always get help from all the builders. They stick around. Well, actually, they show up before the event and help us set up. And after the event, they'll help us tear down, put everything back in the trailer. And of course, those that stick around and help out usually get to go out and eat dinner with us too.
That is a hidden cost. I didn't even think about that until just now. A hidden cost would be the cost of storing it. You either have to buy a trailer or have somewhere where you can put it in a shed or something. But
yeah,
that is true. That is very true. But I think it's one of those things that if you can get that, that it's definitely worth it to be able to run events and things like that. Now, I know you mentioned the the holiday event that you have. What other events do you have upcoming for the rest of this year?
Coming up, the next one is Hickory Bot Battles. That's in September. What's the dates on that? September 12th and 13th, I think. Is that a Friday, Saturday? Yes, September 12th and 13th. It's Hickory. And we'll do, like on Friday, we'll do fairy weights and plastic ants. And then on Saturday, we'll do ant weights and beetles and also bot hockey. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're starting to get a lot more people interested in bot hockey. It really is exciting to do that.
Yeah, it seems very popular on the West Coast in particular, but
Yeah.
it's nice to see that other places are kind of following suit with that. One other thing before I get off the topic of arenas, because I love to ask because it seems like such a controversial question, but what is your opinion on having pits in the arena? Because I know not many people do, but I think from a spectator perspective, it is a lot of fun to watch. But from a competitor perspective, I'm sure they don't like it very much.
Exactly. That's the way I kind of think of it. I kind of think of it as a competitor. I hate to get beat by the arena. If I'm going to get beat, I want the other guy to beat me.
Yeah, we started as competitors, and we still compete every now and again too. So I guess that's where we come from most of the time in our thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely understand. But it's a fun thing to watch when that just happens and you're like, oh no. So
Yeah.
and where if people want to, follow what's going on with Carolina Combat Robotics, where can they do that?
I hate to say my webpage, I haven't updated very much at carolinacombat.com, but the Carolina Combat Facebook page, we're pretty active on there. If they want to join that, they can find out. We're always posting on there whenever we're going to have events coming up, when registration goes live and all that kind of stuff. So people on the Facebook page get to know exactly when the event's going to be going live. So, yeah. One thing we didn't talk about was an expense for a lot of people is where to have the events. So we've been very fortunate that a lot of people have to pay to have an event somewhere. But we've always managed to work with either like maker fairs or museums and hold the events, and they actually pay us to come and do the event, which really helps out a lot on the expenses. And so if you're going to hold an event, working with museums and science centers and things like that is a good place to start.
Agreed. Networking is so important in this sport, and I can't emphasize that enough. So the more people you can talk to and get super interested in what everybody does, I think the better results that you tend to have. So well, that's super exciting. I mean, I'm excited to have learned more, like I said, about what y'all do, because there's so much going on the East Coast. Like East Coast, West Coast is prime central for combat robotics. Everywhere in between, we're getting there. Definitely, like if you haven't already, check out what Chuck and Jeremy are doing, especially if you're on the East Coast. Sounds definitely worth it to check that registration and make sure that you get signed up for an event if you have not been already. So
Be ready to click the button as soon as it goes live.
Exactly. And speaking of buttons, if you're watching this right now, make sure that you click that like button and that subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, which I'm fairly certain that just about every person in combat robotics has at this point, but you never know. So but yeah, so thank you so much to Chuck and Jeremy and everyone else on this episode for joining me and talking about event organization, because I think it's such an important topic and it is the way forward for growing the sport. So more of us need to get out there and do it. But thank you everyone for watching, and we will see everybody next time on the show.